Welcome back to our Colega lessons. So far, we have talked about 3 of our wonderful rights: the right to life, freedom, and security, the right to protection against discrimination, the right to marriage and a family. Today, we're going to learn more about your right to a family and to marriage. I'm going to tell you the true story of a very courageous young woman. While you listen to this story, think about her situation and what you would do in this case. This is a picture of Balkisa. One day, when she was 12 years old, Balkisa Shibu came home from school and learned that her father had promised her as a bride to her cousin when she turned 16. Balkisa had no say in the matter, and she would have to stop school and start a family when they got married. Balkisa is from Niger, where child marriage is not uncommon. Her parents were poor and they had 5 daughters, so they were in the favor of the marriage, since that meant one less child to feed. But Balkisa loved school and did not want to marry her cousin and stop going to school. When she turned 16 and the wedding preparations began, Balkisa decided to fight for her rights, even if that meant taking her own family to court. So Balkisa went to her father and agreed to marry her cousin if she didn't have to live with him until after she graduated from college. But her father could not help her, because in his family's tradition, the older brother could make decisions for the children of his younger siblings. And her father's older brother was her uncle, the man who was the father of her cousin that she was supposed to marry. Her uncle refused to even consider Balkisa's request, so the wedding preparations continued. Balkisa's mother could not help her because women have no power in Niger. Next, Balkisa asked her school principal for help. He sent her to an organization that helped her by taking legal action against her father and uncle for defying one of her human rights, by forcing her into a marriage she did not want. When they went to court, however, Balkisa's uncle denied the accusation and claimed it had all been a misunderstanding, so the case was dropped. Balkisa thought she had won. But then, her uncle threatened to kill her unless she married her cousin. Balkisa quickly escaped to a women's shelter. Finally, the uncle realized he might end up in jail, so he gave up and went back to his own country. Balkisa was able to go home in safety. Her mother and father now want nothing to do with forced marriage. Balkisa speaks to school groups as well as to tribal chiefs. She explains that forced early marriage is often linked to terrible violence in marriage. It is also true that young mothers who have babies at such an early age frequently die because their bodies are not yet ready for pregnancy. Balkisa has now gone to medical school and knows that her family is counting on her to succeed. Balkisa encourages other girls to follow her example. "I'm not saying don't marry," she tells groups of schoolgirls, "but choose the right moment to do so." She tells them to study as hard as they can, even though it is hard. Studies are your only hope. What an amazing true story. What do you think of this story? What stood out to you in her experience? Do you think Balkisa's parents were right to try to make her marry her cousin? Why or why not? I am glad that Balkisa knew that it was her right to choose when and to whom she got married. Let's read article number 16 from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Number 1, every adult has the right to marry and have a family if they wish. Number 2, men and women have the same rights when they are married and when they are separated. Number 3, no one can force you to get married. Number 4, The family is the most important unit of society and should be protected by the government. How does Article number 16 relate to Balkiza's story? Here are some questions for you to answer. See if you can answer before I remind you what happened. Number 1. Why were Balkiza's parents trying to force her to marry her cousin? Yes, that's true. They were very poor, and this kind of marriage was part of their culture and their family tradition. They had 5 daughters and were worried about feeding them all. Number 2, why did not her mother or her father help her when she told them how she felt? Did you remember that in their culture, her mother had no power, and her father was afraid of his older brother because he made the decisions for the extended family? Number 3, how did Balkiza finally solve her problem? Balkiza found another adult, her principal, who would listen to her and who encouraged her and helped her find legal help. What a courageous young woman! Balkiza worked with the legal system and eventually went back to her family. She kept on trying. She did not give up. She found people who could help her and things worked out. Today, Balkiza is a doctor and she is helping her family escape from poverty. Knowing about our human rights definitely helps us all. It is a wonderful right of ours to marry and have a family if we wish to. Families are a beautiful thing no matter what their makeup. They are usually the best place for children to grow up. Thanks for joining with me today. Share the story with your family about Balkiza, the girl who said no to early marriage. Ask your family what they think about marriage that young. See you next time. Bye-bye.